So this might be my favorite episode of a Marvel Disney Plus show ever. Not kidding, episode 2 of Loki is amazing. It hits on almost every level: story and plot, acting, cinematography, emotion, music, and I'd even say the action isn't half bad. I haven't felt this way about an episode of a Disney Plus Marvel show in a very long time, so with that, I felt that I'd enact the old screw on you players and start the video off by giving you my rating, which for Loki Season 2, Episode 2 is a solid 8.5. So now that that's out of the way, let me explain why this is the case. Again, if you haven't seen this episode yet, there will be spoilers, so episode 2 starts off on Earth in 1977 at the premiere of the one and only Zaniac, starring Brad Wolf, or X5 from the first episode. He decided, fuck this shit, I'm about to be somebody. Unless X5 was already Brad Wolf on the Sacred Timeline, which I'm still not quite clear of, but basically he ditched the war lady and decided to boss up. This is all interrupted when Mobius and Loki pay him a visit. A pretty nice chase scene ensues. Props to Tom Hiddleston, cause he was hauling ass and had hella form while running. Of course, you can't outrun an Asgardian god, so rather than make this scene stale, you have the escapee be clever and use his strengths, which is Brad's temp pad that he uses to get away, and Loki counters this with his famous illusion magic and even a new shadow person spell. And you know, I love seeing Loki incorporating magic again since he can't in the TVA, so we don't get to see it as much anymore. The episode is called Breaking Brad, gotta love it, but they bring him back to the TVA, and that's the whole goal of the episode, is to get this mofo to talk. And in the interrogation process, this man proceeds to flame everyone. Okay, he lets everybody get it. He legit attacks them all where they hurt. B-15 abhors how the TVA lied to everyone, and he attacks her hypocrisy at continuing to follow with their processes. He reminds Loki that he is a villain. You know, he's just cosplaying as like a hero or a good guy. And then he tells Mobius that none of what he's doing, none of what he holds sacred and what gives him purpose in the life that he leads now means anything or is even real. And legit, this mofo in the first episode I thought was just gonna be a goon. Okay, I had seen in some of the trailers that he was a Zaniac, but I didn't think he was gonna be as, you know, significant or as good as he was in this episode. But he was on some like Joker shit here, causing a bit of a retribution from Mobius. So this causes them to do the only thing you can do when your whole foundation is shook. You gotta get a sweet little treat. And I love this scene, not just because that key lime pie looks fucking amazing, but this scene is truly great. It's at first Loki trying to console Mobius by relating his attack on New York with Mobius's attack on Brad's face, an emotional response out of anger. That was not ideal for their main goals. It's important to know yourself and be in touch with your emotions. Have emotional intelligence so you know what and how you're feeling and how to deal with them when it's right to feel them, when to act on those things, or else you will act irrationally and not tactical. Okay, as well, the questions Loki poses to Mobius about being curious about who he was on the timeline, and Mobius's response to that not being his life anymore, how he feels that if his life was bad it would be easier than if he left behind something that was genuinely good. This is such a human back and forth to wonder, you know, who you really are. You know, what if you left behind something good? Wouldn't you want to know if you left behind something bad? Like, just to know, I think is very human. And so the writing here just works so well because there's no part that's not natural. I think anybody that is human would relate to this. To know and to not want to know, I think is very human. So I think they did a great job here, especially the composition here, just super great. So with this discussion, they decide to regroup and they bust out a very special device to all my Sigmas out there, the cock and ball torture machine. Fond memories, I'm sure. But basically, they play a clever little ruse on not even 260 Bradley here, making him believe Loki's gone rogue against Mobius' wishes, locking him out of the room, and then cubing him the fuck up, okay? Sending his ass to Cuba, missile crisis, for answers to Sylvie's whereabouts. He eventually breaks and takes them to the McDonald's Sylvie popped up in the last episode. The reunion didn't feel too crazy to me, even though it's been a while since we've seen them together. It feels like no real time has passed, at least in my opinion, and that might honestly be the same thing in the show. I would have been okay if they dragged this on a bit to build up more tension for it, like maybe have Loki miss her just barely a couple different times to build up tension to actually really make us feel when they do see each other. The whole back and forth between Mobius and Brad was great. How do you get only a drink at McDonald's? Okay, that's the main fictional part of this episode. If I go to McDonald's, boom, 10-piece nuggets, crispy Sprite, or that special Coke, and I tell them shove a large fry up my ass, and I get the hell on with my day. But really enjoyable back and forth that gets Mobius to suss out what Brad's been hiding and why he's been wanting to go back to the TVA, and that is because the rogue TVA agents were on track to prune this place. This is what gets both Lokis in the game, and they jump to the War Lady's base and fucks all their shit up with magics. But I don't go into Loki looking for Daredevil style combat, so although it's not the most thrilling or exciting, I was glad to see them at least incorporate more magic. And once back at the TVA, all they can do is stand in awe of all the prune timelines, knowing the degree of the lives of those lost. The last portion of the episode being that they found Renslayer's temp pad, so more than likely we're gonna go back into the early 1900s and see Victor Timely for episode 3. All the while this episode is happening, Casey meets his god and lets us know that if he can't find He Who Remains or get Miss Minutes to unlock the bay doors, then they're not going to be able to use their retrofitting device he created to help maintain the branching, thus the end of the TVA, and pretty much all as we know. So the stakes are rising, guys. The acting in this episode was just so superb. The cinematography is always on point. The composition in so many scenes, the emotion, the execution of the interrogation scenes are so well done and just greatly executed. Like when Loki locked Mobius out, in the back of my mind, I knew it was probably all going to come together as part of their plan, but in the way that it was executed, it just makes you kind of forget enough for the scene to still be enjoyable, even if it's slightly predictable. The banter and the growing relationship between Mobius and Loki is just awesome. And now this Brad fellow is coming in, and honestly, he's becoming one of my favorite parts of the show. I did not expect him to hit as hard as he did, so I'm really hoping he sticks around. There was just such solid writing and execution in this episode. That just makes the show much more compelling. The humanity of it all, the retrofuturism aesthetic. This episode was so good. I haven't even watched the episode of Gen V this week, but I am so glad to see something of such quality come out again to prove good is still achievable for Marvel Studios. Even if it's not perfect, we're on the right track. It's good, it's solid, and that's where we need to be. I loved it so much, I'm almost worried because I just want the next episode to be as good or better. So I'm just biding my time till next Thursday. But otherwise, let me know what you thought of Loki Season 2, Episode 2, and any predictions you have for the future episodes in this season and how you think things will unravel. Any predictions are welcome. That's pretty much it. If you liked the video, leave me a thumbs up, comment down below, and if you want, subscribe. I always appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope all of you guys are well, and I will see you in the next one.